Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we watch an anime. We come together on this podcast, and we discuss the anime like we're a book club. After that, we turn the discussion over to our comment sections to enlighten us why we are wrong. We call the show Baka because there's three of us and we're idiots. To discuss the anime we're discussing today, I'd like to introduce my co-host. First off, we have the mini-me to my evil, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Working my butt off. Last practicum game for one of the classes, and then one more, and I'm done. So close, I could feel it. I barely had time to do this.
Well, we appreciate you putting in the work for us, which gives you no reward or benefit whatsoever.
except for the joy of watching the anime, which that's pretty great. Even this anime was entertaining.
No, that's it. That kind of comes and goes though, depending on
Chris Iver.
Oh.
I'll never let it go.
Then, fittingly, we have the blue wang to my Manhattan, Jason.
God,
Just call me.
that took me.
Huh.
I thought it was like an Asian sidekick I didn't know about, but no, it's not.
No, he called me a male appendage.
Hey, we are not made for kids. It's official.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, you too. No, I'm having a blast with the Clone Wars. So I've been so involved with the Mandalorian that I had never seen the Clone Wars show. So now that Disney Plus is out, I've been kind of catching up with that, and then also lots of 7 Days to Die. Felt like zombie apocalypse was a good way to spend my free time. So
I'm surprised with as much as you were talking about Path of Exile last episode. I thought you'd be really going crazy with
Those
it.
were all announcements, right, of what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so the new drop actually happens the 15th, I think. So I'm kind of waiting for the next rollover.
I know what that's like. I'm waiting for Phoenix Point. It's dropping on the 3rd, and I'm just gonna have to sit there and look at it because I don't have time to play it.
It's pretty. It's pretty.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
And my name is Troy. And besides being in Star Wars Nirvana, I beat Fallen Order, and the ending gave me chills. Not only did I beat it, I 100% completed it, got all the trophies.
Whoa.
PlayStation 4. It's my 3rd platinum trophy ever. On Jedi Master difficulty, too. Really proud of that accomplishment. Definitely worth playing just for the ending, though. That ending is so darn good. Oh, my goodness. But what I've really been doing, my daughter recently started playing volleyball at her school, and I went to a game, and I had no idea what was going on. So I started watching Haiku on Netflix, the volleyball anime, so I could learn how volleyball works. And I'm having fun watching a sport anime again.
Oh, that's funny.
That's
Is
terrible.
it girl volleyball or boy volleyball, or is it no difference?
No, it's boy volleyball. It's very similar to the basketball anime we watched.
Okay.
They don't have as much as like a power set as they did in the basketball one, but they're still like the main character is a very short character, and they're like, you can't play volleyball, you're short, but then he can jump super high and fast, and everyone's like, oh my god, his jumping abilities. And
see, that's where I was trying to place whether it was a sports anime like that or a sports anime like the combat one that you were watching with all the girls.
yeah, when's season 2 of that coming out, by the way?
Yeah.
Kaijo. Yeah,
Kaijo.
No, I haven't forgotten about Kaijo. I'm ready to go when it's ready to go. All
So
right.
you're telling me that he that the team doesn't notice your son very well?
My daughter's play.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to learn the rules of volleyball, so I watched a sport anime to learn it, which is classic me. Why read or Google something? There's an anime for information. Okay.
Well, real quickly, I will have to agree with Troy's assessment of Fallen Order. I also beat it. I did not 100% it as he did, but wow, what is it? A 5-minute ending? Like it's
Wow.
Man, just like the sound hits you and you're like, oh my god. All right, we need to move on.
yeah, so good.
Okay. Don't spoil it because I gotta play it at some point.
But also just so much lore into all the cartoons. No, okay, I gotta stop. Let's talk about the anime. We actually watched the first 12 episodes of Dr. Stone, and to be fair, we took a vote. We are going to finish Dr. Stone, but it is not finished yet. So this episode is just about the first 12 episodes. Probably in very early 2020, we will come back and finish Dr. Stone. But to get there, we need to go through this first. So let's start with a non-spoiler review. Jeremy, what do you think of Dr. Stone?
Wait, who picked it?
I did, but I've been the one talking the most, so I'm going to be quiet for a minute.
I didn't like it at first, but it kind of grew on me, and yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Now it takes the RTS approach to an anime, which is kind of novel to me. I mean, I know I've seen different empire builder animes like Overlords and some of the others that we've watched, like the Slime one. But I don't know, this took it from a different perspective, and the character behaves differently, and yeah, it's interesting. I liked it. It was good.
Okay, Jason, how about you?
I had a similar thing where I was very like meh at the very beginning. I didn't dislike it, but it grew on me really fast. So there's another channel that I like called Primitive Technology, which is just a dude who builds stuff in the woods, no words, and he's even made iron out. Like he's built like he pulls clay out of the ground, makes a furnace, and like he got iron. So this kind of reminded me of that, like where he's, making these crazy inventions out of wood and clay and, getting where he needs to go. So it's kind of got its hooks in me there. Plus, you mentioned something in our chat, Troy, that the character arcs were fairly flat. I would have to agree, but it's like I'm actually liking the characters despite that. So.
I do think there's at least one reasonable arc, but yeah, for the most part, I agree with that too.
And to be fair, I wasn't actually talking about arcs. I was mentioning like depth. I find.
Oh.
So for me, the whole show it's kind of shallow. It's almost a very light, funny shonen almost show about science, and it's more about showing off the science than it is about the characters or the plot. Like the plot is just serving like, hey, let's talk about this next science thing. It's kind of like Bill Nye with a very thin plot through it. It didn't really work for me. Food Wars does very similar stuff where they like explain the science behind the cooking and stuff, and I get really into that, but the explanations weren't very deep, and I didn't feel very relevant. And the characters, while I like them, I wasn't investing in them, and the comedy wasn't always hitting for me. So I get why people would like this. It just wasn't touching me personally.
Would it have been better if they had made electricity and then like the girls and boys' clothes just explode off? Like, oh my god, science.
I'm assuming that's a rhetorical question, right? Like, of course it was.
A science gas? Anyway. Not for children.
That's right. It's official.
What did you guys think of the opening and closing?
I liked them both.
Yeah.
They're not top tier, and I probably forget them after watching this, but like I like both the music, the visuals. They did a really decent job on them.
Yeah. Every time that the outro starts, I'm like, oh, I like this. I like this. Then it gets to the rap section. Not quite so great, but I still want to listen to it. And the intro is just great all the way through.
Yeah, I like the music of both. The visuals themselves were fine, served their purpose. So nothing it's kind of how I am with this whole anime. I don't really have anything negative to say. I'm just kind of like, it was fine.
Bleh. Just a
Okay.
bleh.
Too much intelligence there. So.
Ooh.
Hey, he called me it. Never mind.
All right, let's go on to our spoiler section then. So we will be revealing everything about the plot, about the characters, up to episode 12 once again. And I can't even tell if that is a natural breaking point or not. I did kind of peek into episode 13 when we chose it. That doesn't seem any better of a stopping spot. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and start discussing. Spoiler warning has been dropped. We start in modern times, and we meet our first main two characters, especially our main character, who I thought's name was going to be Stone.
Yeah, me too.
And that would seem silly, right? Like, Troy, this is a show about people turning into stone and then waking up in
No.
a...
This is anime. That totally makes sense.
Right. And also, the main character's hair looks like a green onion for no reason.
Yeah.
Like, he was born that way. It's not a science experiment.
His dad's hair's that way.
Yeah, he doesn't have powers. He looks like a shonen character in a world without shonen characters for no reason. So,
yeah,
I don't know. There's at least one.
Our primate one.
Uh-huh.
We'll get there. Our main character is Sanku, a genius high school student with a huge love for science. What do you guys think of him?
I think once I got a bit more about his backstory, I started to buy I'm just a really talented science kid. Like, because he seems to be able to do nearly anything with not only chemicals and technology, but also cooking and just any practical application of anything you can vaguely claim as science.
Yeah.
And I liked his explanation near the beginning, because he was like, it's not so much science as a thing, but science is a method. And sometimes the method is lots and lots and lots of failures until you get it right. And I think I liked that approach from him. But the speed at which it's presented that he succeeds seems a little overwhelming. But besides that, I enjoy him as a protagonist and kind of a focal character of the story. He's arrogant, but you definitely know his weaknesses, and he gets exploited for those weaknesses quite a bit. So,
yeah, it's like when an RPG player comes to the table and they just create a character that has a general skill that's really, really high, and then every single time anything comes up that could theoretically be under that general skill, yep, I'm going to take the whole role from this skill. And exactly like that. At first it was kind of driving me nuts. Also, his dogmatic approach to how science is just amazing. Science has solved this, and science is perfect, and everything. And it kind of came across very similarly to how you could have somebody who, is religiously dogmatic or sorcery dogmatic or any other thing that they could pick that they're just so confident in. But seeing, like you said, Jason, how he he made it clear later that it was the method is really what he was meaning. Every time he kept saying science this and science that, it was really just the method. And to me, that makes a lot more sense, because science is something that, every decade or so you find out, well, we didn't understand that the way we thought we did.
Yeah,
right.
The way he phrases it, especially because he's talking about like this magic event that turned every person in the world to stone, is that everything has a rule set, and science is just the method of learning the rule set. So even if this is magic, that doesn't matter. You can have a method to discover the rules of that thing, and then that becomes science.
Yeah, exactly. And once that was made a little bit more clear, I started to have a little bit less frustration with it, and I think that's when it started growing on me. Because there's a lot of moments where there are strange things that he's observing, and he's not applying the same sort of like, why is this happening mentality? Like a kid that's able to retract into a watermelon rind and roll across the ground, or a primate man who is so powerful he can knock down a tree with a single blow of a chert blade with one hand. Like the ridiculousness of the characters it's such a hyperbole that having it combined with science where everything is supposed to follow rules and fundamental laws, just it's a really stark contrast. And he's at the center of it because he's always talking about how, those rules are so important, but these things he just doesn't care about. And that was one of the things that bugged me until I was like, it's just silly. The anime is just silly. Okay.
Oh yeah, they hand wave a ton of like science projects that he does.
Yeah. Yep.
Really? So I like the quirks that they gave him, like the fact that he has evil maniacal laughter whenever he's winning.
Oh, yeah.
I love that he's physically weak. Even just like a scene where they're drawn far away and walking. I think it's actually the last episode. They're just like walking along, but he's drawn slouched and exhausted while everyone else is just walking normal. And there's because they've gone like more than a mile and he's already worn out. But for the most part, he just feels like a plot device with some character quirks and some crazy hair. Because it was like, we need to have the encyclopedia hit the Stone Age and see what happens. And then we'll give it, the ability to move and talk and then put on some character quirks. And that's what he really is, because he's able to be like, okay, guys, I know how iron is made. So now iron can be made in this time. And so he was fine. He was fine.
It just seems like that grates on you. That's really funny to me.
It's shallow, so I can't get attached. And that's all it is. Like, I'm not really invested in what this guy's going through or his struggle, or, his thing was like he wanted to go to space, but he knows how to make iron. I don't think those two are really connected. I get science became a hobby. He just loved everything about it. But again, all that was just like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if an encyclopedia was in the Stone Age and then could do the stuff inside of it?
Yeah. Plus, like, every time that he would get something new, it would pop up with like an RPG reward. But yeah, every time it would pop up and it'd be like, yeah, iron acquired or chrome acquired, meaning two very different things. And to me, that was one of those RTS moments, and I love that. Kind of goes with your encyclopedia illustration.
So while he's at school, his best friend comes up to him, and his best friend is getting ready to confess his love to another friend of this group that he has loved for years and years. And he is asking for help, and Sanku basically plays a prank on him by giving him a love potion, but ends up just being gasoline.
Like, super dangerous. Like, what?
Yeah. He doesn't drink it. He pours it down the drain and then walks out, and like it bursts into flames. And all the other guys are like, "Why? What if he drank the gasoline?" He's like, "Nah, there's a 1,000,000,000% chance that wouldn't happen." Also, he loves the hyperbole percentage.
Yeah.
But this other character is Taiju, who, in the course of the events of what we talked about, if Senku is the encyclopedia, this is literally the kinetic energy making things happen. He is the brawn to the brain, and is really in these first episodes presented as the main character, the point of view of the audience. What did you guys think of him?
I thought he was all right. He was a little too dumb for my tastes, but I know the contrast they were trying to make, and it felt a little better when we got a little more backstory of when Senku first wakes up and he's like, surviving is really hard. And then he comes to the realization, he's like, I need like muscle power and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I like, and I also like Senku's or not Senku, but Taiju. I like that Taiju is like nearly as strong as another character that we're going to come across, but he's just super nonviolent. He's just like super pacifist. But yeah, he was okay. His interaction with his love interest is kind of frustrating to watch, but that's par for the course when it comes to anime. So
I had a hard time with him at the beginning just because of how much weight they were trying to put on the relationship between him and his love interest before she was ever even resuscitated. And it felt like everything happened off screen. And they tried to weave some of it back in to be like, yeah, these are some of the events that they went through together, that they encountered each other on. This is some of their history, but I just couldn't really feel it. And so when those dramatic moments came where he's like in front of the tree wailing or whatever, it hasn't really been 3,700 years, dude. It hasn't for you. Oh God, the brain. Yeah, but yeah, sorry. I just remembered something I really hated.
Yeah, we'll get to that after we talk about
Get to that, yeah. So, but he did grow on me a bit, and I'm very interested to see what's going on with him now. Around episode 12 and onward. Yeah.
Taiju was actually the character I liked probably the most, with maybe one exception.
Surprise.
Because he reminded me of a shonen character. He reminded me of like a Naruto, where he's all instinct and he's all determination, and there's not a lot of thought process involved. Because Sanku's whole thing for surviving this was, with my brain and intelligence, I was able to get through this. And Taiju's is, I focus on one thing, and I actually agree with you about the romance. And once I found out, like, oh, we were all childhood friends. Okay, well, I understand why you want to confess to her now. They did not present that in the beginning. They're just like, hey, there's this random girl that he loves for 3,700 years to survive. But assuming that he's a blockhead, even if it wasn't real love, the fact that he can't focus on more than one thing at a time, I bought that. And I really did like the weaving the pacifist into his personality, even though it felt just like we need to keep you set to a very strict role. So we're adding in this new personality part to you.
Did it click with you guys that his role was the peon, the peasant, like in an RTS game? He's that unit that gets produced to do labor.
Yes. Which, and I like that he was fine with that.
Yeah.
If he was like really being exploited, I probably actually would have been like, oh, this is kind of cringy. But the fact that he's like, you're right, that's what I'm good at, and that's what they're the fact that their entire friendship and they're really close friends based on the fact that I cover your weaknesses and you cover mine. I bought their friendship very well. That was actually one of my favorite things of the whole series.
Yeah.
No, I actually really like that as well, is that I'm really good at doing physicality things. So since you're going to make my life better with your big brain, tell me what to do, and then our lives will be better. I like that thought process.
And also just that I love the idea of going to space, but I'm not someone who can ever do that. But if I help you, you can help me go to space too. Even though that's not really. But you get what I'm saying. All right.
You can help me get the girl.
So yeah, he goes outside to tell that Yuzurahara. I wrote her name like in 10 different ways in my notes, and then I went to Wikipedia, and even in the show notes, I can't pronounce it. I'm gonna call her Yuzu.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Is it a hairpiece? Is it headphones that do turn to stone?
God.
What the hell is on her head?
Nope.
Please just tell me.
Nope.
Yuzuria.
Nope.
Yuzuria.
Yeah, Yuzuria.
Okay.
Yeah, those headphones I absolutely hate. They break all the rules. They break all the rules because the body is the only thing. Like body and hair, it has to be organic. It has to be a part of them. I mean, even their clothes flake off and go away.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you don't know if it's like a growth on her head?
Apparently it is, and she's had it since she was a little girl. There's no other explanation.
Well, I was fine with it being there until she resuscitated and left it on still. And I was like, I mean, if that's just like plastic that is hardened or calcified in time, fine. But that can't be comfy anymore. And why would you want to keep it on your head if they were headphones?
But it can't work with the rules.
And I don't think they cover her ears.
Science anime.
So it's not headphones.
Yeah,
right,
it's a haircut.
And right, but in the past, I thought they were on her ears. I thought she lifted one up when he came to talk to her.
Oh my God, I think you might be right.
And then in the future, in the Stone Age, they're up above the ears and have become just like a hairpiece. But I thought they were headphones back in the beginning of this.
Oh my God,
this makes no sense.
Okay. Any thoughts on her character?
She's all right.
Yeah.
I got a kick. Tanya was sitting over here watching another show, and I was like, hey, you gotta watch this. During one of the moments where Taiju is like, he's scared because he's worried that she's got a different love interest, and so he grabs a hold of her and he's like shaking her, and just the way that the guy draws her, I was laughing so hard. She thought it was funny. Sex, it was fun. Um, it was really, really good. Just character, she's entertaining, but I thought she was there for the girl jokes for the most part. I mean, she really was just kind of Taiju's plot device for a long time. There's a moment where she starts to develop a little bit as her own character, but then she disappears. So, like...
And to be fair, in this anime, by own character, you mean she gets a role in in the RTS game.
Yes, exactly. Like, she's now the like crafts person who is, yep.
I just wanted to clarify that no one really, with a few exceptions, no one really develops a character in this anime. Yep. I don't think. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, he goes to confess his love, but when he does, a giant green light covers the world. He turns around. He tries to get in the way of her, and he turns to stone. Their bodies now 3,700 something years pass, and Jeremy is very upset because he's awake this whole time, and he didn't go insane. And I knew the second, it happened, I'm like, oh, Jeremy's gonna hate this so much.
There have been so many studies. There's so much evidence on the effects of solitary confinement over very short periods of time. 3,700 years? No, these people are insane. Taiju and Sanku, they're insane. It's not possible for them to retain their intelligence. Not to mention the simple fact that biologically, we've seen other heads broken open and there's stone in there. They don't have an organic brain. So
he explained that one away.
No, he didn't. What he explained was that somehow his brain was consuming the necessary calories to perform its functions still. And he was saying it was getting it from the petrified stuff. But how? If his brain was petrified, then the neurons would not be operating the way they would in an organic brain.
So his brain didn't petrify, and that's what he mentions when, like, every something is 800 something seconds or 8 million seconds, I almost pass out. That's his brain trying to calcify and petrify, which is what happens to most people.
Oh my God, you're kidding me.
By resisting that and getting through that, and because of his thought process being so focused, which is the same for Taiju, because they were able to think and keep their brain functional and eating away at those calories, he's able to keep his brain from turning into stone. While, yes, everyone else turned fully into stone, and that's why they weren't thinking the whole time.
So brains don't just operate on calories. They also degrade over time, and they have waste product.
I mean,
explain that, Sanku.
I don't disagree with it. To be 100% fair, even I was like, that's a bit ridiculous that they're not completely insane the moment they wake up.
The whole thing when it comes to, like, just the brain and how it functions, and it just
if I'm saying it, it's bad. Like if I'm noticing.
Yeah.
No defense here, by the way, because 100 years passes. Whether they were able to keep their sanity or not, the brain dies. Like the cells just stop redoing themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I guess enough could happen in 37 years that two statues next to each other could separate by large distances. But he was like 2 feet from her, and then she ends up in a tree, and he's all the way over here.
Also, how old is that tree now? That's pretty old.
Maybe it's that tree's baby.
Maybe that's what it is. Also, like, how brittle are they, right? Because a human, if we're going to talk about how strong Mr. Human Primate Man is, crushes them with his grip. So they seem to be relatively brittle. And we see a lot of them are fragmented and broken. I'm absolutely shocked that, given that kind of condition, any of them survived and weren't fragmented into pieces. It just doesn't really make sense to me.
Right, but if we're consistent on this particular rule set, then we don't have a show. So
Right, exactly. And that's why I was hating it at the beginning. I was like, dude, this is supposed to be about science. It's a science anime, and you've already flummoxed this much. Like, whoa. But it does get better.
Did anyone remember that show on Discovery that was about if humans just suddenly disappeared on the Earth, how long
Yes!
would it take nature to reclaim the
Yes.
city? I kept thinking about that, like, man, I mean, nature's just super destructive to anything humans build if the humans aren't
Yes.
there to maintain it, and the
Yep.
fact that any of this stuff is okay. Oh,
Yep.
anyway, let's move on. Taiju wakes up 3,700 something years later. He's running around naked. He remembers, and this is important, but we don't know why yet. Before the whole every human turned to stone thing, there was a birds were turning to stone thing happening. He
Yeah.
remembers finding birds turned to stone, and he has that flashback right here. He goes and finds Yuzu, confesses his love to her statue, promises to save her, and notices a message scrawled on the tree next to her that says, "Hey, Lunkhead." Is it Lunkhead he calls him?
you big oaf.
Something
Big
like
oaf,
that.
yeah. I'm upriver. So he goes upriver and he finds Senku, who's been awake for 6 months already, right?
And
Mhm.
why is he in a tree?
Lions.
I imagine he posed in that tree every day, just like he'll come along one of these days. I gotta be ready.
Yeah.
I gotta look cool for when he wakes up.
Yep.
And the reason they know how much time has passed is because when Senku was locked in stone and his brain was working, he used it to count seconds. He
Oh my
counted every
gosh.
second.
Oh my god.
Just to show you how, because it was the only logical thing to do. Also, he was able to think while counting, like he was able, and then that really bugged me. Like I started itching, like, oh god, trying to count and think at the same time.
Yes. Yes.
Senku has clothing, he has shelter, and we'll find out why later. And he is on a mission to rebuild modern society in this world using science, and he needs Taiju's help.
Yep.
And he has figured out that the bat guano from the cave that he and then eventually Taiju was in is the reason they've been awakened earlier than everyone else, but it doesn't straight up cure things. So they're trying to figure out they need to put in alcohol. So they develop wine, they distill the alcohol out of it, and they start working on a cure. It takes them a whole year. And we see like a year fly by of trial and error and learning how to live in this world. And then it starts working.
Yeah, I liked that it took that long.
Yes.
That was pretty cool.
And you mentioned it earlier, the fact that there is trial and error in a lot of the things
Yeah.
they do is very, very good way to handle this. Instead of just like always like, hey, I automatically know how to do this. And it's,
Mhm.
I know the general concept. We'll try. We'll see how it works. We'll get help if we need it.
Yeah, one of the things that I keep seeing happening is it's one thing to know how to do it, it's another thing to be skilled enough to do it. And he only has the knowledge. And it takes him forever to get the skill if he can even acquire it. And I really respect that. That's a really cool character design.
Yeah, when they were gonna distill the wine into brandy, he like all of a sudden that pot's there. I'm like, are you serious? And then all of a sudden it explodes. I was like,
Yeah.
that makes total sense.
Exactly. Yep.
They go to awaken Yuzu once they have the cure created, but stop because Taiju insists that they put clothes on her first so she's not naked. But then they get attacked by lions because apparently lions escaped from the zoo and have bred and now are native to Japan. And so they run from these lions. Taiju's like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself. He's like, no, you idiot. I'm literally not strong enough to do any of this without you. You're just as important as me. It's not just the brains we need the brawn. So they're like, hey, oh look, there's this super powerful MMA fighter from high school sitting right here. What if we wake him up instead? This is Tsukasa, who ends up being our villain. Thoughts on Tsukasa?
You can tell just by the way he's sitting when he's made of stone that he's going to be the villain.
My wife tried to convince for some reason, Cassie watched the first couple episodes. She's like, I don't think he's going to be too villainous. I'm like, no, you can clearly tell.
How much anime do you watch? I kind of liked him as a villain because his motivations weren't purely evil. They were misguided and immoral, but he was trying to make the world a better place. It was just his version of a better place. So
I think
the problem is like, so he didn't want to wake up people that were going to ruin the planet in his vision of ruining the planet, right? So he's like, why wake those people up if they're just going to cause harm? The harm that I define it. So he's literally playing God, even though he's being jury, judge, and executioner at this point, and that's what makes him the bad guy. But also a high schooler that can one-shot a lion with a punch was a little much for me. Like, that was... Yeah.
Where's the science? Where's the science show? What the heck is going on? That was exactly what I was thinking when he first broke out of the stone, and that was his very first action, was to one-hand punch a lion and kill it. And I'm just like, what in the world? What is this anime? This is not about science. This is a fantasy. This is a joke. But yeah, no, I looked at his behavior and his methodology as essentially being parallel to any kind of methodology that's like, well, this group of people I don't see them as beneficial, so I'm just going to kill them all. And I'm like, yeah, that's not great. But at the same time, what was I going to say? He's got oh crap, I forgot what it was. I'm sure it'll come to me in a minute. But yeah, he's a really interesting, frustrating character.
I'll just say I hate him. Now, I'll say I understand your point, Jason, about because one thing about is that like he's like, war. If we follow science, that leads to war. We need to not have war, even though I clearly see his people using bows and arrows, which was technology.
There you go.
Yep. But I'm pretty sure anyone who's ever committed mass genocide thought they were making the world a better place, and they're still super evil.
Yeah.
Yes.
But my problem with him is his backstory. The reason he wants to commit genocide and wipe out people, because one time when he was kind of sad, a drunk guy beat him up.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
It wasn't even like his dad beat him or or his sister. It didn't even say his sister died. He was just like, one time my sister was sick. I went to the beach. This guy beat me up.
Yeah.
So everyone in the world has to die. I'm like, that is the most shallow, evil backstory that I have ever heard.
I was hoping it was like he was from some war-torn area of Europe. Oh. And like he had lived through bombings or what? No, he got beat up as a kid.
One drunk guy beat him up, so he became an MMA fighter with no friends. So now he feels ready to commit genocide on the earth.
Yep. Not to mention that, like, he says that the little boy got beaten up so bad that you couldn't even like tell who he was by his face. But now he's got like this pristine, even in stone form, and even in his memories, he's got like this pristine, ultra attractive villain look, the way that they always draw them like that, which cracked me up. But what I was going to say earlier, go ahead. Okay.
I was just going to say that in his stone form, I was like, oh, bad guy.
Yes, exactly. What I was going to say earlier is that like his entire concept of, they make the world a bad place because of war, and because they're telling everybody what to do, and because they'll claim that they own everything, and they'll want to make the rules and set. What is he doing? He's making the rules, deciding who owns what, going to war, killing people, like everything that he hates the adults for, he's doing. Has he not heard of Lord of the Flies? Like, come on, man. You cannot eliminate the ultimate trajectory of multiple humans in an environment. There's going to be competition. There's going to be issues that arise, and they have to be resolved. And he's an absolute shallow idiot to think that he can avoid that.
And of course, when we come across him later, like the goons that he's raised, it's like,
Oh my God.
those look like pure-hearted people before they were frozen.
Did you find the stone biker bar and pour it on
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. So yeah, he does save them, and then they explain to him everything that's happened, and he's like, "Hey guys, well then I will be your protector." He becomes their hunter and gets food for them, gets animal materials. So
this is the first fighter unit, is how I saw it for the RTS.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow he can jump from tree to tree and grab a bird midair.
He punched a regular rock into dust to grab a sanku underneath it at one point.
Right. Like the kinetic force didn't transfer to the statue.
Sanku doesn't trust him. He's like, someone that powerful clearly has an advantage in this world, and if he has even the slightest ill conception of how to handle it, we're screwed. And that proves accurate almost right away. First, though, they do collect calcium carbonate, which is basically lime, and I knew one of the things they were going to make from that. They use it for shells. And I'm like, hey, they're going to make soap, because my parents used to make soap with lime. And I was like,
they're going to make concrete and gunpowder.
So yeah,
the gunpowder.
Yeah, they use it for farming, for making mortar, and for making soap. And then we come to a conversation between Tsukasa and Sanku, where Tsukasa is like, he tells that backstory I mentioned, which was, again, it's not that it's not sad. It's just for world genocide is a little weak. And then he starts like destroying statues, and he's like, "Hey Sanku, I know you want to wake up everyone, but I need you to not do that." And Senku's like, "No, I'm waking up everyone. I'm putting the world back exactly how it was. That's my goal." And
I did like a line before this where he compliments Sanku, like, hey, you're a pretty great guy. And he's like, there's only two reasons over 10,000 years of human history why a man would compliment someone else. Neither is flattery or scheming.
Flirting or scheming, but yes.
That's right.
Yep. That was a good line. And there was also there's 4 things we can use calcium carbonate for. Didn't I say 3 things? I meant 3 things. Let's not mention the 4. But also, during this conversation, Senku's like, it's fine, because as long as he doesn't know, we have a resurrection potion for stone people. If we find Taiju runs up, I made more resurrection juice! Yay! Ill-conceived timing that's convenient happens a lot in this anime.
Yeah.
There's like, man, we need a lightning storm. Cool! Yeah, so Taiju reveals the miracle fluid, and so Senku tells him about the cave to make Tsukasa leave. They run with the miracle juice to Yuzu and basically wake her up, and Senku's like, guys, you need to run away, or we need to get ready to beat this guy because things are bad, and we don't have any choice. She's immediately in. She's like, you're my best friends, whatever. I don't know what's going on, but I'm in. Tsukasa comes back, and Taiju goes to fight him. But Taiju, like we mentioned, is a pacifist. So his way of fighting is, I'm going to run at you until you hit me, and then I'm just going to take it.
Yep. And then we come back for more.
And Senku pulls out a crossbow, which has no effect. And
he knew it wouldn't have an effect, though.
It was to distract Tsukasa enough so that Taiju wouldn't get hit as hard as he could.
It was more to stop the fight. It was, if I shoot this thing and distract them, they'll start talking instead of continuing to beat each other. Or, well, Tsukasa beating him.
Yep.
Taiju basically is like, you're going to stop being evil, or you're going to have to keep beating me up. And Tsukasa's like, where's the bad side of that for me?
Yeah.
This is not a deal.
Yeah. Taiju ends up passing out, but then he's faking, or he wasn't as hurt as they pretended he was.
It just seems like Taiju can be woken up by, like, hey, your girl, and boom, his single-minded willpower takes over, and he gets over any illness or issue.
I think he is still injured. It's just I think his willpower pushes him past it, especially if it involves his girlfriend.
Oh, so he is a shonen character.
Yes.
Yep.
More feelings, more power.
So basically,
Yep.
the two groups
Yep.
decide. The two groups decide to split, and they're like, "Tsukasa, you go, and we'll go." And they try to make their house look like they left in a hurry, but then they go off traveling to find materials, and they figure they have to defeat Tsukasa, and the only way to do it is to create gunpowder. So they leave. Tsukasa comes in and visits. He's like, "They wanted it to look like they left in a hurry. They're clearly going to go make gunpowder."
I want to know.
He's way too smart.
Yeah, that's what I was going with. It's like, how does Tsukasa always figure out what he's doing? Like, he's like, okay, he's got the carbonate. Gunpowder.
I think he's at least, well, he's not a scientist, but he is a strategist, tactical genius kind of thing, where he's like, okay, they need to defeat me. There's no way they can physically fight me. What would be their next step? Get a weapon that could beat me. What could they make in the Stone Age? Probably gunpowder. I could see this one. There's a couple that are like the faking the death and yeah.
No, I agree with you about the gunpowder, but it's like it's the same way that Sanku seems to be a generalist, but also a specialist, a specialist of everything.
Right.
This guy also seems to be like, I have enough knowledge about everything. Like, you can only strategize and make tactical decisions based on things you know. So that means that he has to have known it and retained it, learned it and retained it, while simultaneously honing himself into a weapon and incredibly perfect destructive monster. So, like, where was the time to do that? This is like, if you're going to build your character sheet out, let's just min-max everything. Like, there's no min, everything's a max. I mean, because he's way smarter than Taiju, and yet he's also way stronger than Taiju.
Yeah, but you gotta have a villain be tough. You know, if he was.
Yeah,
it's the Marvel formula. It's the same as the protagonist, just evil.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the combo protagonist, like the two halves of a character.
Right.
Yeah.
After getting lost, Senku and his group find a Buddha statue that is famous in Japan, so they figure out where they are, and then they're able to get to the hot springs where they can gather sulfur.
Actually, that was kind of funny. Like, the first thing he does, instead of marveling at the statue, he's like, "Oh, bronze!" He starts trying to break it off.
I can use this.
And it comes up later why, but he's complaining about it, like he made a sextant and it's not working. He's like, my little GPS thing here is not working like the way it's supposed to. What's going on? And then later they explain why. And I thought that was a cool thing.
That was a nice touch.
You know, when you're dealing with 3,700 years later, to come up with those kind of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
We get a scene where Taiju decides not to confess his love to the girl he's wanted to confess his love to for 3,700 years. Look, I get it.
I don't.
She literally has no other options. If he's like, hey, it's like Adam proposing to Eve. What is she going to say? No?
I don't know. I guess you'd work through all that uncertainty and other issues of that sort revolving around a relationship if you've dwelled on that relationship for 3,700 years.
The part that's dumb is that she clearly has feelings for him, and she would clearly say yes in a heartbeat, even if there was a million people around. But yeah. I do get the, look, I don't want you to say yes because of a lack of options.
So therefore, we'll never get together, and there will never be any children.
You don't need children. They're just going to revive everybody else. There's already people flourishing in this world. It's fine.
Actually, that's
the one thing enough people.
One thing I'm appreciating about this so far is that Senku is just like, he's so consumed by science and his projects that he's like, Yeah, I don't want a girlfriend. You can go somewhere else. He's like, can I use you for muscle power? No? All
Yeah,
right, you can go.
later. Yep. Yep.
So that brings us to, who do you guys ship Senku with? Is it Taiju?
Right.
Nobody. He
Yeah.
no interest at all.
I don't see Senku like settling down with anybody.
All right. Wrong.
I mean, I thought
Well,
maybe the
clearly
blonde for a
Kohaku.
little while, Kohaku, but yeah, it seems one-sided.
They do eventually make the gunpowder, and when they go to test it, they make the mistake of not realizing that it will set it off while they're making it. So it creates this large explosion and this large smoke. While they go to put out the smoke, they notice smoke being lit in the forest a few miles away, which means, and it's the opposite direction of where Tsukasa would be, so they mean someone else is out there. They're not the only people in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to make the decision: do we put out the fire before Tsukasa sees it and comes after us, because he's clearly going to have figured out what we know, because this is the kind of anime we're in. Or do we, go for making contact? And they decide to make the fire bigger. They all rush off to get wood. Tsukasa sees the smoke. He finds Yuzu, takes her hostage, confronts Senku, and is like, look, dude, you've either got to promise me you'll never touch science ever again, or I have to kill you because you're the only thing in this world that can stop me. And then we get a cool flashback into Senku's childhood about how his dad, gave up everything so he could be into science, and why he loves science so much.
Even sold his car.
Science. Yeah. Yeah, it was actually, I'm glad they did that with the backstory. It gave a little bit more explanation for why Senku is such a genius when it comes to sciencey science. But yeah, this is just silly at this point. I was really having trouble with it here.
Senku is like, nope, I can never give up science, so Tsukasa kills him. Also,
I did like that, but at the same time, how he's not dead, so it's also kind of like
The show is called Dr. Stone. So, I mean, I don't see...
Which is not Senku. There is actually a thing that's Dr. Stone in this anime, and it's not Senku.
Oh.
Well, right, but at this point, you assume that's who it's going to be. Yeah. So it's like, okay. One thing I did like, though, to bait him into what happens is he goes, do it in one blow. Don't make me suffer.
And then he cracked it.
Yeah. He does hit him in the neck, and then Taiju runs back and holds Senku in his arms, dies. They use the gunpowder, and that's actually, he distracts him so that you can throw the gunpowder at Tsukasa, hit him with a big explosion, and they're able to get away. He survives it unscathed because he's the world's strongest man in the whole, well, literally, but also even before, probably literally.
And because Taiju clearly doesn't, he's a pacifist, so he didn't really intend to do any damage. So this blast surely wouldn't have meant to do any damage. Right. Blah, blah, blah,
blah. And what are third degree burns? I mean, his skin was on fire, but, he's strong. Yep. So
he's strong. And he has feelings, too.
Pull off your burning clothes slowly as the women gaze and all.
Exactly.
The lamentations of the women.
And so basically, Taiju and Yuzu are discussing what happened, and he's like, no, Senku's thing was that, he would never sacrifice himself. Sacrifice is not in his playbook. There is always a plan C, D, E to save everyone. So he would have thought of something. We need to figure out what he wanted. And they realize, he was pointing at his neck. He was cracking his neck. And they look at the back of his neck, and there's still some stone back there. And something that they had established earlier is that if you still have stone on you and you heal it, you'll actually get healing properties into that part of the body, because
it'll rejuvenate that area.
Rejuvenate the flesh there. And that's what they call Dr. Stone. Actually, curing the stone off your body is Dr. Stone, because it actually does super healing to the human body.
Now, did you guys also...
on your faces.
Yeah. And they never even talk about those besides that first little, oh yeah, remember these, the crack on our faces that didn't heal. But after that, they don't talk about it. And I kept wondering, like, did they get dirty? Like, does stuff get in there? Do they get infected? Like, what kind of crack is it in the forehead, or wherever you have it?
Why are yours symmetrical? Is that weird?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then also one of the things that bugged me was early on when Senku was explaining how he broke out of his stone, he stated very clearly that it wouldn't matter how little of the resurrection fluid got dripped onto somebody, even if it was just a little bit in the right place, anywhere really, not even the right place, just anywhere. As soon as it broke one piece of the stone off, it would create a reaction that breaks all the stone. He makes it really clear that it creates a reaction in the human body that breaks all the stone off. So why now is there a stone toe, and is there stone on the back of his neck, and is there stone on the ends of Mr. Primate's ponytails? Like, this irked me too. And all I can say is maybe Senku doesn't know what he's talking about and he was just making a guess. But, oh man, that irritated me for a long time.
You okay?
No. It's not science. It's not consistent.
They pour this fluid, and then we actually go into a super long flashback that will take place over 2 whole episodes of Senku waking up and his journey. So basically, we get like a prologue to everything that happened to Taiju. So we get Senku emerging from the stone and bonding with monkeys, calling himself the big shiny monkey, discovering like fire and weaponry, and the monkeys are always amazed when he does anything. Builds shelter. And then eventually he finds Taiju's statue. He drags it into the cave he was in because he realizes that had to be the reason he broke out early.
Was Senku in the cave when he broke out? Because it looks like the hole that he had dug for his body was meters away from the opening of this cave.
Yeah, I think you're right. But it was the cave that caused him. So it must have gotten into the ground.
Specifically the nitric acid, right? That was dripping off the ceiling. And a mix of guano.
And so after all this, the flashback ends. Actually, I really liked how they did this. They did the flashback ending with him yelling at Taiju, "I need you to wake up," and Taiju yelling at Senku in the present, "I need you to wake up," and then both characters waking up. And so Senku is okay. He's like, "Hey, you guys figured out my plan. That's I hardly gave you any clues. That's actually really impressive. Thank you. Glad I'm not dead."
What a gamble.
And then, and I still have issue with this, he's like, "Now I need you to go back. I need you to go be his friend, and he'll in no way suspect anything."
Yeah. I didn't get this either.
The guy who figured out we were going to use gunpowder with just looking at some broken pots is going to see you two walk back into his camp and be like, "Cool."
Yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense.
And we haven't seen, it doesn't show us it. We, at least in these 12 episodes, we have no idea how it went down. We assume it's working because they're not dead, but
we have no idea if they are or not.
Yeah, they leave and they disappear from the rest of the story that we've seen so far.
Yep.
And that made me sad. I liked it. Okay. So Senku goes on, and then we come to a quick scene where I'm a little confused about the geography of this world because Tsukasa seems to be like warping ahead of places. So Tsukasa gets attacked by a little blonde, hot warrior chick, and beats her with ease, and then leaves. And then Senku, who's going away from where he had died, gets there. So that means Tsukasa got around him. Didn't run into him.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, because when he talked about the smoke that was going up before, it was going the other direction from where Tsukasa was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like Tsukasa got there. Tsukasa went down the mountain, and maybe it's like a sideways route down instead of heading back directly. And she was coming because she did say that she saw everything that happened, and she knew that Tsukasa was a villain. And so maybe she actually like, but then how would Senku have seen her? Had to be halfway. Had to be halfway.
All right, so she attacks him and she gets her butt kicked. This is the character, and not only butt kicked, he knocks over a tree to pin her down into the ground and then leaves
casually,
very casually,
with a chert blade,
super
with
easy,
one
barely
hand.
any convenience.
Yes, and it's not even like a little tree we're talking about here. This is, I hated this so much.
That's what I was thinking when you're like, because he breaks the people statues so easy, they must be brittle. And I'm like, well, he breaks everything, no matter, like he breaks tree density and he breaks regular rocks. I don't know if they're brittle or not.
He punched a rock.
He's clearly packing Dr. Manhattan heat down there and just does whatever he wants.
Yes, he
nice way to bring that around, by the way.
Yeah, I don't want people to forget what I called you. This character is Kohaku, who is not having problems with her website. What did you guys think of her?
I like her character. She reminds me of the prehistoric chick from Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, so I was wondering if you're going to say that. Me too.
I like that she's, she's basically the best fighter in this village. She's very practical, and I love that she gets this look on her face of like when they're doing the scientific process, like she's like, "This is dumb. What are you guys doing?"
Yep.
But yeah, I enjoyed her character.
Yeah, no, she's a specialist, but even so, she's not good enough to even come close to Tsukasa. That's just crazy to me. But I found her to be really entertaining. Yeah, she's probably my favorite character just because I don't know. There's something really cool about the pregnant. That's what it is. I don't know. It's entertaining.
Losing you again.
Okay.
It might be best based on what we heard. I'm not sure what you said, but it might be best we didn't hear.
My favorite parts of her.
I have two really great reasons.
Or the boobs and her pointy hippo.
No, she's good.
I do love every time she's insulted by Chrome and her head just gets enormous. Like,
Yep.
They decide she's the gorilla of the group.
Right.
Even though they have no idea what a gorilla is.
Yeah. Just old stories.
My thoughts on Kohaku. I like her. I like her backstory of like there's a reason I became the rebellious daughter, but she really didn't seem that rebellious. I don't fully understand what's going on in the village, especially with the chief and what's going through his mind, because she doesn't seem like she's being that rebellious, and they're like, oh my god, she's the worst.
Everyone talks about following the rules, and it almost seems like that's their religious conviction, is following the rules, along with, if we don't follow, basically that early primitive idea of if you don't follow the rules, you die.
Well,
right?
And but they say like we don't let in outsiders because if you're an outsider, you must have been exiled from here.
Exiled or dangerous.
I don't remember. I guess that's true. I don't know. It still just seems kind of shallow. Yeah, but she's a fine character, and she is drawn very well.
Yep. Why don't any of the villagers? Yes. Why don't any of the villagers say anything about the cracks on these people's faces? I don't get it.
I honestly thought this anime was gonna go the Naruto whiskers route and just never mention it. But they did mention it, so I'm like, oh, that's not just superficial, art style.
Yeah.
that's there, and then no one.
And they drop it.
But Senku notices. Senku's able to be like, "Hey, he has cracks. He's a guy from the statue."
But nobody else gets it.
No one else. Maybe they just don't care. Maybe they don't realize that's weird.
No, I think for this particular anime, this is a specific plot point to identify visually who's a statue person and who's a natural born.
Sure. And I love that. I actually think it's really cool that you have some kind of visual identification that's really clear. But I don't know. They should embrace it more rather than just leaving it cosmetic for us.
I think it's probably going to play out later to where someone's going to be pretending to be of that generation, and then they're going to get discovered that they're a statue person.
I could see that.
Okay, so Senku saves her by creating a pulley system which lets him lift a tree. And then they have...
I thought this was great.
She introduced him. She's like, "You're a person I could really like." And he's like, "Hey, don't be falling in love with me." She's like, "That's stupid. That's not what I meant." They make camp that night. He insults her. They go and collect hot spring water for her sick sister, which she does all the time.
Which he immediately drops.
Yeah, he offers to carry it. He drops it. So then he builds like a vehicle out of the pulley system that he had already had, which they crash, but it gets them to the village. They get to the village, and they're immediately stopped by two guards named Kinro and Ginro, who are brothers.
I love these characters.
And Ginro is like everything's fun and cool, and you're cool. I don't care, but I'm scared of everything. And Kinro is I only care about rules. The rules say you can't come in, so you're not coming in. Thoughts on your guys' thoughts on these two brothers?
I loved that they weren't just throwaway characters, that they ended up incorporating them into the story, because they're like later on they're obviously neglecting their duties so hardcore, but at least no one's getting into the village, so it's fine. But yeah, I like their character arcs that they're having. Actually, I think these are some of the only characters that get arcs.
Yes, it's these two.
And I do like their the way they play off each other. That's funny.
Yeah. Ginro, like you were saying, he's the more relaxed one and everything, but oh man, does he have to conquer some of his fears by the end of this? And yeah, he's the character I was thinking of when I mentioned earlier that at least one person seems to have an arc and a little bit of depth. But even Kinro has a bit of depth, just in the sense that, like, you know, he's such a stickler for rules and everything, and you can't get away with anything, and he can't be bribed. But boy, he loves that gold spear, and they really take the time to develop that sort of duplicitousness in him, where he's a bit hypocritical, but he knows it and doesn't want to admit it, but he really still wants the golden spear. And it just it's indicative of how he's going to behave later, which we do get to see, where he's more inclined to actually like let some of the rules fly and go out and help them. And yeah, I like both these characters.
I like Kinro, and I liked how he was like, "I care about the rules. Here's a golden spear. I don't even love this thing." Like hugging it.
Yes, exactly.
That I liked. I liked how he's so proud he can't admit how he feels. Ginro, I actually found annoying until the last episode, and then they, like you said, they did give him that arc, and then I was like, okay, I can appreciate that. I like that. After distracting them with bubbles, and I love that soap is one of the technological marvels that's one of the most useful things. You know, the magnets and electricity, all that makes sense and that seems obvious, but pulling out stuff like copper or soap, stuff that doesn't seem like it super important to the modern world, but not realizing just how huge leaps and bounds it is. I absolutely love that. So he uses soap to make bubbles and is like, oh, look, I'm making bubbles. And they're like, oh, magic, sorcery. So the resident sorcerer comes out to battle him and challenges him to a sorcerer battle. This is the character Chrome, who we find out is actually the modern day scientist of his time. He just doesn't
Yep.
realize it. Your guys' thoughts on Chrome?
I love this character. And I love that their battle was not a physical battle, but it was who can outscience the other. And and of course, you know, in his mind, he thought he was the greatest because he could throw different chemicals into the fire and make it change colors. And I love his arc. I love the way he turns around. I love that he doesn't become antagonistic, but he becomes more of a sidekick. And that he's willing to do what needs to be done, not just for the name of science, but also to help, you know, his love interest.
Yeah, he's really entertaining, and part of me wonders if he's more of a genius than Senku is, simply because Senku's standing on the shoulders of geniuses. I mean, everything he knows read. Yeah. Whereas Chrome had to, you know, scratch his way through to do it. So I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, which Senku basically calls out, like, you're literally banging two things together to figure out their properties. That's where science is born. That, you know, you're literally figuring out those rules I mentioned earlier. Yeah, I get to know them all ahead of time because everyone else figured out the work for me, but you had to start from scratch. I liked him. I'll be honest, from the moment he appeared in the intro, I was like, please don't replace Taiju. And he kind of does for this part of the story. But like you guys said, I did enjoy all the stuff that the fact that he is this natural born scientist, the fact that he didn't lose and be like, well, then I'll get my revenge. He's like, okay, I have a lot to learn and you could teach me, so I'm in.
So I can see how you would think he replaced Taiju as far as like character, but he didn't in functionality. And actually, I like that even though he now has a sidekick, they still need manpower that they just weren't able to replace Taiju for. So they have to come up with creative ways to get manpower.
I meant more just playing off of Senku. One thing, and I mentioned in our pre-show, like, a lot of the jokes didn't land on me. The jokes that, and normally I complain about this, the jokes that landed on me were Taiju just freaking out about every little thing. His over expressiveness and screaming.
That's what irritated me.
I thought it actually, the proportion worked for me in this anime for some reason. I laughed at it the couple times it happened. Where his Chrome was just kind of another guy.
That's really curious to me. It makes me wonder if the concept of like a standard tropey shonen protagonist can be entertaining as a side character. Like, you can forget that he's a standard trope because he's a side character and then embrace the silliness of it and enjoy it from that perspective. That's interesting.
Hey, right now Naruto is a side character in Boruto because Boruto went back in time and is now hanging out with his dad during the time of Naruto.
No.
True story. I've seen it like popping up on YouTube and I'm like, what are you doing, Boruto? Was anyone like, hey, could we go back to like the first season of Naruto but with these characters? That's what I want. Anyway,
it sounds like Boruto's storylines were so bad that they're like, how do we get back to something that people like?
That's what I was thinking. Yep.
So by winning the sorcery battle, Senku gets basically the science storage, which is where Chrome has collected all his rocks and herb and everything he's collected, trying to figure out.
Since he was a kid, right?
So 10 years. Huge storehouse full of stuff. One thing that that bugs me is that, like, once they acquire something, it seems like they have endless amounts of it. Like, hey, we developed iron, so now we just always have iron. Or like the lime. He just seems to have endless supplies of lime, but he hasn't been back to get lime since the beginning, and he wasn't carrying anything around, but he still has it.
Yep.
And I get, you know, the thing that kept reaching me is like, I've reached the Iron Age. Well, you made iron, but you can't like produce iron on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So did you really reach that? Okay.
I
Yeah.
did like their first attempt at making iron failed miserably.
Yeah, me too.
So first he makes the golden spear, which we kind of mentioned, and we learned that Kohaku's sister Ruri, the priestess of the village, is sick, and Chrome. The reason Chrome's been into science is to try to figure out how to cure her. So, realizing that this will help him incorporate the village into his new nation of 3 people, um, he's going to cure her with antibiotics. So he needs to invent antibiotics. But they're way, way far away from that as far as science goes. So he starts coming up with a plan. They talk about how he can't make penicillin because finding super mold will be literally just a crapshoot, and who knows when it'll actually work. But they can make sulfa from stone, so they're going to go the sulfa route to make drugs. Then they go out in the night, and they're talking about stars and stuff, and they talk about the North Star. He's like, it's true north, and Kohaku's like, that's not true north. That's a little bit off. And he realizes, oh crap, the planet shifted in 3,700 years, which it would,
Right.
And that's why his sextant didn't work earlier, and he realizes, like, man, I'm kind as smart as I am, I've made a big whiff by not really calculating how much can change in that huge amount of time. I'm still assuming everything's the same. And then he finds out they have a magnet. Chrome has found a magnet, which they can use to collect iron sand from the river. And then they meet a little girl with a watermelon on her head. And this is Suika. And she hides her face under a watermelon. What did you guys think of Suika?
Or her whole body.
Yep.
Let's just say Suika is the cutest thing in this anime. And I do like that she becomes the intelligence agent of the RTS world. Right? I think she doesn't get enough screen time, but that's just me personally. I liked her contribution to the story.
I like that they actually gave an interesting explanation, and it was sciencey as to why she wears the watermelon on her head. That was funny. But also, it was bugging me for a while. Like, that thing's got to stink. Is it a different one? Do you keep changing them out? But I think it must be lacquered. It must be a preserved watermelon rind that she's wearing. I can't think of any other way that would work. Ugh.
I thought it was a green tomato.
It didn't look like a watermelon.
Right.
But they called it out. It was the only way. No. But yeah, she was entertaining. She's green. She's tiny. Is she Yoda?
Nothing is Baby Yoda.
Nothing.
Nope.
Guys, literally, Baby Yoda.
Oh my god.
Anyway, I think she works in the small doses we get her. I think she was just perfect. She got to make a fun anime reference to Detective Conan with her. She's the person who can go in and out of the village with ease and bring back information. And because he's nice to her, she's willing to help. So not a lot of depth there. She works. Mm-hmm. And then they need to melt down this. They need to melt down to make iron, but they need to get the fire really hot. Wood doesn't burn it hot enough, so they create air pumps into their furnace. And have to use manpower to do it, and it's not enough. They cannot get the furnace hot enough after trying all day. So they need more manpower. And so that's when they send Suika in to investigate. She gets some information. Basically that, hey, food would work. All they ever eat is fish there. So Sanku uses science, and using foxtail, just because it has grains, he's able to create flour, not wheat flour, but a type of flour. And from there, he's able to make noodles. And so he creates ramen. And I love that he serves it to basically these barbarians, and they're like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever, and he eats it. He's like, oh, this is all wrong, this isn't how ramen's supposed to taste. I really like that. It was like Food Wars in ancient times.
Ancient Food Wars. No, yeah. So by today's standards, he failed miserably. He is no cook. But to these people, who only eat fish,
it does make you think too about how far culinary has come and where our palates are probably compared to like if we went back 3,000 years and took a bite of bread, like holy crap, there is no sugar in that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Jeremy. Jeremy knows what I'm saying.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to.
So he creates basically a ramen cart and goes outside the village and is like, "Hey, come eat my ramen," and people start eating it, and he's basically like, "Hey, if you ate the ramen, now you have to work."
I love how he's serving them, and he's just like, I can't wait for them to start pumping air for me.
Yeah, there's even like one of the three sisters. They're like the three beautiful sisters. Ruby, I think, was the one, and she's like, "Oh, what kind of man are you?" or something like that. She said because she got the food, and that's what she cared about the most, right? And he's like the kind that wants to see how hard you can work or something like that.
Yeah, no, she's like, she asked what kind of women he likes. He's like, ones that can pump a lot of air.
Yes, yes, it's so great.
While he's serving them, though, he hears one of the customers say, "Man, I wish I had a cola." And so he realizes, and the guards at the same time realize, there's an outsider among them. It's a new character named Jen, who we have actually seen in a flashback before on the cover of a magazine in one of the flashbacks. And he is a magician from our time, but he prefers to call himself a mentalist. And so what did you think of Jen, who we will find out actually works for Tsukasa?
I love that they brought in not just science to primitive people, but then also sleight of hand to primitive people, and like what that would do, because that would be true sorcery to them, right? And he actually ends up doing that. But I also love his bag of tricks that we get to see. I thought one of them was a little too convenient, but I bought it because, yeah, if you're in a dangerous place and you need to be convincing because you're weak, I can see that. I could see that kind of preparation.
Yeah, he kind of reminded me a little bit of Psych at times, just in the sense that he's supposed to be a detective, right? He's supposed to be following Tsukasa, or not Tsukasa, Sanku, and figuring out if he's alive, investigating everything, right? And at the same time, he's supposed to be really good at figuring out how people think, because that's a necessary trait of a magician. And so yeah, he's always predicting the best way to deal with people, and he's right most of the time. I also liked one of the moments regarding him, because it seemed like the anime was actually going in a serious direction, and I thought, whoa, you're really gonna do this? But then of course they pulled back and didn't do it. But they preserved the consequence really well, I thought. So like there's a point where he actually gets beat up really bad, almost dies. He has to recover, and they give him time to recover, and they make it a real issue that it's taking that time. I thought that was really good writing.
I loved how when he first starts talking to them, Kohaku immediately goes, "Everything this guy is saying is poison." Like,
Yeah.
I believe literally nothing that is coming out of this guy's mouth right now.
I thought, so when he first showed up, I'm like, oh, okay, so the way this anime is going to work is Tsukasa is going to send basically mini bosses that Senku is going to have to beat periodically as he works his way up to beating Tsukasa. And this character really took me by surprise, because he basically comes in and he's like, yep, I work for the bad guys. Just so you know, your friends are currently working as spies. We know that. Doesn't he say that? Doesn't he say like, yeah, they're fine. They're clearly working for you.
Yeah, I think he does say that he knows they're working for him, but I don't remember if he said how they're doing, or if Tsukasa knows. I don't know about that either.
Him mentioning it though is how they know he's from Tsukasa. That's how they find out, because he's like, hey, how are my friends doing? He's like, oh, they're fine. But anyway, I like his morality and how they go all in on it. He is not a good guy or a bad guy. He literally confesses out loud, I'm on whoever wins. I just want to win. Okay, this world sucks. I want to be in a world that doesn't suck anymore, and I'm going to be help whoever does that. And mostly what I want is a harem, And but I could use some amenities. The ramen was nice, so let's see what you can do. And so to defeat this character, you have to basically convince him, and they set it up in a nice way that you can't just like kill him, which is clearly an option. They're like, no, if you kill him, then Tsukasa knows something went wrong, and he's going to come investigate himself. So we have to let him go back. The only way to survive this is to convince him to be on our side. So they decide to make electricity, which they need anyway.
I did like how they kind of hand waved melting other items once they made the effort to show melting iron, because everything else is going to be at a lower temperature.
Yeah.
And I do like that they called back to like, nope, people come to the ramen shop every day and then work for it. So we have like a production line of creating things. When they give the big tour of the science station,
I really hope at some point they get tired of the ramen.
And he has to come up with something new to get them to stay.
A new dish.
Yeah.
Oh, then we could do a crossover with Food Wars.
Right.
Food Wars, he finds them and breaks them out of the stone.
Yep. Okay, they create the iron, which they're going to use to create a magnet, which they'll be able to use to generate electricity. And they need a lightning storm, which does happen to show up, but that's actually inconvenient because they're not ready. Some villagers come to attack them due to the lightning storm. Jen talks them out of it thanks to using sleight of hand, convincing them he's a sorcerer. Then they climb up a mountain, they steal the golden spear, they stick the iron on the golden spear, and it gets hit by lightning, and they get their magnet. And I do like that Kohaku's like, it didn't work. They won't even touch each other. He's like, flip it! Magnet.
Which is horribly dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Fingers could have been cut off.
The one thing that was really irritating was how Kohaku, like, she does this backflip in the air, kicks the spear out of his hands, able to tie it mid-air, and then stick it in the ground. It's like, once you're up there with these items, isn't the lightning just going to strike you at that point?
Well, she's not grounded anymore, so she should be okay.
Right. Even though lightning wouldn't care.
Nope. Path of least resistance, right?
That's right.
So when they get back to the village, was anyone freaked out that suddenly Senku's face was just blown up? And they didn't explain it for like a whole minute?
Yeah,
I was like, did I miss something?
I think we were trying to some sensei I was familiar with, but
We lost you. Say that again.
But not really. I thought he was deliberately trying to do some kind of impression of a sensei from some, cartoon or anime show that I wasn't familiar with, but it kind of was not intentional though.
I thought he was like putting something in his mouth to prep for later, like he was chewing on something, and that wasn't it. It ends up he has lacquer poisoning.
Yeah, I thought he was like, did he get stung and I didn't realize it? Like, is it some allergic reaction?
Yep.
And they build a hand crank generator, which I thought they were going to go for water. I thought they were going to go over to the stream and get a water generator, but nope, hand crank. And they get the two guards to help spin it, Kinro and Ginro. And Jen manipulates them to do it, and they create the first rudimentary light bulb. And this was a cool scene. I like in my time, we weren't afraid of the dark. We figured out how to drive it off, and I was like, I'm still afraid of the dark, but whatever.
I was sad we went with Edison and not Tesla.
Nice.
I had that thought of Edison was such a folk hero for so long, and now he's kind of become this folk villain as we build up Tesla. And it was interesting that they decided to go with Edison, but that is the easier way to explain.
Yeah,
rather than getting into the whole thing.
Radio frequency transmission of electricity craziness. Yeah.
Sanku warns everyone about Tsukasa and how dangerous he is and what's really going on there. He has actually already given the whole history of the world to them. We get a flashback of Jin and how he was freed by Tsukasa and getting his assignment. And then he's actually attacked by the same villagers from before. Mostly it's a character named Gaston. I mean Magma.
Right? Yes. Totally.
I mean, he even has the little fat sidekick who's like, "You're so
Yes.
cool."
Yep.
They find him, and he's not dead. I believe this is what Jason was talking about. He had blood packets in his
Yeah.
clothes to fake his death if he was ever attacked, but he is very badly injured. Suika does some investigating, hears Magma bragging about it. The group talks about why he would do this, and we find out there's a fighting tournament coming up. Guys, this is a shonen, you realize, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, there's a fighting tournament coming up, and whoever wins gets to marry the sick priestess and become the next chief. And that's a real bad thing if Magma does it, because he literally doesn't want to marry her. He just wants her to die so he can become the chief.
I wonder if anyone would believe me if she just drowned it in the river and she just succumbed to her sickness. Like,
His reason is like, I just don't want to deal with all that.
right. All these, like, the villains in this, just they don't have good motivations. I gotta agree with you on that.
It's not like he has to pay for health care or anything.
No.
like what is he worried about?
Yeah.
Still got to be married to a super beautiful woman, at least for like a month or something. Not so bad. Maybe I'm a villain. I don't know. So they come up with this plan to stop Magma, which is to train Kinro and Ginro, and also have Kohaku enter the tournament. Again, Kohaku actually won the last one, which is why they're having another one, because she can't marry her own sister and become chief. That'd be Ginro's favorite thing ever.
Right.
Yeah. Forbidden love.
We should also mention Chrome's in love with Ruri. Because they keep bringing up, they're like, hey, we're going to train these guards to win and marry her. Hey, Chrome, weren't you in love with her? Oh, you can't, because you suck. Senku's kind of a jerk.
Yes, he is.
Jin is healing. Him and Senku talk one night. We don't actually get to hear what they say, but then he runs away the next day. He goes back to Tsukasa, goes back to the Nation of Might. A little on the nose there, man. And then reports
The
that
Nation of Science and the Nation of
Nation
Might.
of
Oh my
Science,
god.
Nation of Might.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Oof.
It's a little on the nose. Nobody's going for like New Japan or.
Yep.
All right. He reports that Senku is dead. He's like, hey, I had to tell you really fast. He's dead. And the reason he's decided to side with Senku is Senku promised him to make him a cola.
Right.
Even one.
And it's got to be chilled just
Gotta
perfectly.
be ice cold. So I had this conversation with my daughters. What needs to be invented? I'm guessing the glass will be part of it, but you also need the carbonation. Yeah. The flavors you don't really need to invent anything for, and then do you need refrigeration, or do you think you just put it in the water, like a cold stream?
Put it in the water, get some ice from a glacier or something.
I don't know, a glacier steam a bit of ways. Maybe mountaintop glacier? I don't know.
Well, of course they do.
They might have some mountaintop that would be cold enough.
That's where fresh water normally comes from. That's how you store it for the winter, or for the summer, spring and summer.
Okay.
Yeah. Not really glaciers, though.
So he needs the glass to contain it, and then in the carbonation, right? I don't know where carbonation comes from.
Injecting carbon dioxide, from what I understand. Just pump it in.
Or you could throw in baking soda.
I don't know if Gen would be okay with that. Depends on just how much it neutralizes the flavor and everything.
Right.
Okay. Then we decide we need to make glass, which is the next thing.
Which is the best arc ever.
Yes.
They need the glass to create advanced chemistry. The first thing he notices is that Suika is short-sighted. The reason she wears a melon is because she always has to scrunch her face to look at things, because she has the fuzzy eye sickness, which just means she's nearsighted. So the first thing they do is they harvest quartz sand, melt it down to create glass, create a lens, and put it in Suika's melon, and now she's able to see. And she gets this beautiful scene about being able to look at flowers where she cries.
I had to wonder why they didn't just make little glasses for her so she could take the stinky watermelon rind off of her head, but it's character design now, so can't let it go. They didn't have to change the art at all either, because once the lenses were in, it's just like that it looks exactly the
you
same.
can't tell the lenses are hidden. It looks
No.
the same. We also learned Kinro has the fuzzy eye sickness as well, which is what holds him back as a fighter. He actually is quite good, but he can't see very well.
Right.
Yeah. After that, they decided they need to start blowing glass to create beakers and laboratory instruments, and they suck.
I love that they
I
have
love
this
that.
pile of melted goo glass on the ground.
Yep.
So Chrome goes and kidnaps the village craftsman, and I didn't write down his name, but he's this old buff dude who's been
Literally ties him in rope.
Yep.
The old guy had to let him. There's no way that Chrome was able to do that without his permission, basically.
And basically the whole plan is we're going to blow glass in front of you to the point where you get so frustrated with our ineptness that you just want to do it yourself. And it works like a charm. Yep.
Part. Yep. This is great. I loved this so much. I watched it twice. It was great.
Again, kind of going back to like the units of an RTS, but even like you need the worker. Science doesn't work without the worker doing the work to make it happen.
Yeah.
You kind of call that like you need the craftsman. This is a guy who spent his entire life nose down working, who's meticulous and is able to build things. So he's a natural. He's talented. There's one in every generation, and they help science jump forward, even if they are not scientists themselves. And I like that he's calling out. It's not literally just scientists that make science go forward. It literally takes all these different types of people and roles to make science move forward. I like that.
I love it when they first pull him up. He's like, I want no part of this. And then he's like, oh, don't worry. We just want to show you what we're doing. And he's like, starts rolling and like blowing. And he's like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Is he doing it on purpose to provoke me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, he is.
So yeah, he takes over and he manages to perfect it. And he becomes part of the Science Nation. They now have a proper lab with proper equipment. We are given the anime brings up Mecha Senku to give us a tour of the nation to show us. My favorite part was I liked it.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I laugh. I especially like we have this top of the line battle arena. It's really just a corner of the field.
Yeah,
that was funny.
Then Kinro and Ginro want their spears upgraded again, and keep in mind, when he made a gold spear, it didn't make the spear better. It was just pretty.
Yes.
And so like, we want a gold one and a silver one. And he's like, I will build a silver spear, but you're going to use it to go on an adventure with me. And we find out the next thing, we need another ingredient, the hardest ingredient to get for the drugs that they're building. And the silver spear is essential to get it. And they give it to Ginro and make him the bodyguard of the team. And they're basically going to a hidden spring, which is actually sulfuric acid, and the chemicals coming from it, the gases, could kill them instantly. So he has to hold the spear out, and if it turns the silver black due to a chemical reaction, they'll know they have to get away. And they go to the lake, and I really liked how they portrayed it. Like the lake itself is this beautiful siren, and at first I'm like, oh, that's a cool illustration, but they doubled down on it. And when the birds die in the lake, she's like, come here, I'm going to get you. Come back to me.
Yep. And knowing that that's all inside of Ginro's head is great. It's like they're giving us a moment to see his perspective of the world. Also,
lost you.
Oh, probably good. I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, I agree with you, Jeremy, because it was cool to see, because we know that cultures of past times personified literally everything in order to explain them. So this was very fitting that because it had been built up in his mind by Senku that, hey, we need to be super careful because something from this lake can kill you instantly, that he would build up this personification of death coming for him.
Yeah.
And also, when he saw the lake, it was so beautiful, he imagined it as a goddess. And then what Senku had said earlier and was saying now and what he was seeing all mixed together into this horrid zombie spirit woman.
Yep. It's like a nightmare fairy.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So they have to leave, and they decide they need to make gas masks. And his plan is to leave Chrome behind. He's going to tell Chrome everything he knows in case he dies. Someone with science can...
Stupid.
Totally agree with you, Jeremy. This is dumb.
Stupid. Like, how in the world does he think he could possibly tell Chrome everything he knows? Give him years to try and tell Chrome everything he knows. It's not going to happen. One night? That's stupid.
Yeah. No, both of the scientists going on this thing was just dumb. They should have sent lackeys.
Well, yeah, there's that too. Yes.
I do agree, because I actually thought my first thought was like, obviously don't send the people who know how to do this because we need them to be able to do it. But then what Senku says is, because of my knowledge of science, I'm the most likely person to succeed at the mission. And I was like, yeah, that one is true. Probably don't need Chrome to go. But Chrome disagrees. He convinces them to go as a duo, as a tag team in the buddy system. And when they get there, Chrome actually falls and Senku can't save him. But Ginro, who refused to go back, but the old craftsman made him a gas mask. Just, oops, I made an extra one. My bad.
Yeah.
Ginro finds his courage, puts on the gas mask, gets up there, and just in time to save Chrome.
Which
but
irritated the bejesus out of me. He's holding the end of a stick with a 120 plus pound person at the end. Have we not heard about leverage? How strong is this individual?
Maybe he can knock down a tree with one hand.
Right.
Yep. But I did think, at least for the story concept, like for this character's arc, it was nice to see him conquering a fear, because
yes,
I remember that one of the first things he said was, "Oh no, I don't know how to deal with these bubbles. I'm going to use my special attack, which is let someone else handle it." And he starts running away. That was when confronted by soap bubbles. So being confronted now by the goddess of death over a river, and having to actually stand up to it. It's a huge, huge moment for him as a character. But I totally agree. I hated the leverage. Oof.
I did like how he puts himself in danger by being scared. He literally starts breathing rapidly, and they already kind of covered this to establish the threat. But the gas mask will work as long as you breathe normal. The only thing I was thinking though is like, but what about exertion?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Wow, you heard that too?
Yeah. Try talk more.
Yeah. Nope. My microphone's switching back and forth.
Oh, good.
There was a problem with your mic?
Nah.
Nope. On.
We were almost done.
I know. I'm getting this big error message.
Oh no.
Okay, I should be okay now?
Nope.
No, you're scratchy.
I mean, it sounds like you're talking from a gym locker room, but we can hear you.
Yeah.
10 seconds.
Oh, you sound good there.
Real quiet, though.
Yeah.
How about now?
You sound distant, but it doesn't have the scratchiness.
Okay. Now what do I sound like?
I can't tell if that's your voice or if it's breaking.
Hello? Hello?
Maybe try unplugging power from your thing and plugging back in.
Just did that. right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm registering 6 megabits a second on satellite. I wonder if I'm registering wrong. I don't understand this. Like, I know upload speed must be what's the issue for camera and stuff, but I should be doing fine. I shouldn't be having any sound errors with you guys.
All right. How about now?
You sound good now.
A lot better.
Okay. All right. So thanks to all this work, they acquire sulfuric acid, and that's the end of where we watched. So, any last thoughts on the battle with sulfuric acid lake?
I thought it was really
pretty
well done. Yeah.
Okay. Final reviews. Jason, what'd you think?
It's pretty middle of the road. I'm engaged as far as storytelling wise. I like the sciencey part of how they're pursuing it, but my favorite part is the Stone Age technology and like progressing through those technologies and like what they need to acquire the next thing. The characters I think are pretty good. They're not fantastic, so I'm gonna give this a 3-star.
Okay, Jeremy, how about you?
3 Bakas.
3 Baka stars.
That's our rating
I
system.
really, I really did not like it at the beginning. I was frustrated with how the anime is supposed to be this, science this, science that, and so I expected that everything would be explainable, right? Like it's coming to the table with charts and measurements, and everything makes sense, and every loose end is tied, and that is not what this anime is about. This anime is really kind of about bandying around science, like when it's entertaining and when it's useful, hitting the things that are most likely to be known and probably be familiar to people, like iron and soap and copper and bronze and calcium carbonate and like gunpowder, the things that everybody's going to recognize. It hits those beats, and I can respect that, but it's not what I thought it was going to be, just based on how much it like lauded science. I do like that. I absolutely love, in fact, how they fail over and over again. Senku's failure, even Game Gen or whatever his name is, that guy, the magician. Just the fact that he got beat up and derailed and everything. I don't know. It surprises me every time I start to think I know what this anime is about and that it's just shallow. It would do something that would get me interested again, catch my eye. So also I like the art. I like the art. So I also think it's a 3 Baka.
Okay. I think conceptually, I like what they're doing and what they're going for. It's like this fun, comedic, educational shonen. That's cool, but it doesn't quite have the charm as Cells Live. What was it?
Cells at Work.
Cells at Work.
Mm-hmm.
Or and it's definitely nowhere near as entertaining as Food Wars. So I just found it mostly shallow, and while there was definitely some interesting parts in there, it just didn't work for me. So I'm gonna give it a 2 Bakas.
Mm-hmm.
Like the lowest I've given something in the longest time too. All right, our next anime.
Yeah.
Jason has picked this, and
Thank you, Chase.
It's
You're welcome.
fine. It's fine, except for the last time we watched this, and I had to write. I take notes, guys. I have to write the title down on every page. I hate you.
You didn't have to write it on every page.
No,
Just keep it all in one notebook.
Even abbreviating it. Okay. Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon 2?
Season 2.
The second season.
Yeah.
It's 12 episodes, so we'll be watching that and discussing it in 2 weeks. We are coming up on year end, so after that we will have to figure out like when we're doing the movie and our flashback episodes.
So it looks like we lost Troy, but still got the 2 best and handsome members of the cast. And I'll never forgive him for the opening joke. No. But anyways, that's it for our show. Hit us up at the Baka. No, God. The Anime Baka Club at gmail.com. or you can leave a comment wherever you found this either recording or video. Till next time, Jeremy, let's go ahead and say goodbye.
We'll see you later.
Thanks for listening.